10 years ago today, the 5th installment in the Skylanders series, Skylanders Superchargers, was officially released in North America, and later on the 24th in Australia and the 25th in the EU. The game didn't come out in the UK until 9 days after the American release date on the 29th. It was playable on Xbox One, Xbox 360, PS3, PS4, Wii U, and on Apple devices. The main feature of Superchargers was also playable on Wii and 3DS as its own separate game called Skylander Superchargers Racing. Today I wanted to touch up on a few topics about when the game launched, what I thought about it then, and how it still holds up today. In 2015, Skylander Superchargers was actually received quite well, especially when you compare it to how a majority of the community treats it now. It received an 8 out of 10 from IGN, and some of the points they made were that the figures were some of the best looking Skylanders ever released. The air and sea vehicle sections are optional and something you can compare to the elemental gates from previous games, but are a much cheaper option, with Trap Team requiring 10 whole Trap Masters to unlock them all. There's a surprising diversity of enemies, and though almost all of them can be approached in the same exact way, they are beautifully animated. A critique they made, and I think this is one of the only ones because IGN made a very positive review, that I very much disagree with, is that it had a disappointingly bland story. Which may be true, but remember, this was a game targeted for kids, and if you ask any fan, even those who dislike the game will tell you it has one of the best stories in the series. So what was the story? Let's go over a brief summary. The story of Skylander Superchargers kicks off with Chaos gaining control of the portals, capturing Eon, Flynn, Callie, and Hugo, and unleashing the ultimate weapon,
the Sky Eater.
First you go to Count Moneybone's prison ship, freeing Flynn, Callie, and Hugo. After escaping, you head to Motley Meadows to defend it from the Sky Eater's attacks, then make your way to Cloud Scraper Mountains to rescue the Cloud Breather Dragon, who can track down Eon. With its help, you learn Eon is being held in the Land of the Undead. To get there, you power up your vehicle with the Thunderous Bolt, which you obtain in the Cloud Kingdom after defeating Lord Stratosphere. After that, you make your way to the Land of the Dead, rescue Eon, and take down Count Moneybone. Eon explains the only way to stop the darkness is to finish the Core of Light, a weapon the Ancients developed to defeat the darkness, but never completed. After that, you travel across Skylands to gather its missing parts, defeating Spell Slamzer on Battle Brawl Island, shrinking down to rescue Fuzzbottom and Gladfly Glades, and stealing the Colossal Kernel from Captain Cluck and his chicken army, and then using it to grow giant and take down Thundertoe for the Eye of the Ancients. With Mag's help, the core is finally rebuilt, only for Chaos and the Darkness to come in and destroy it. With no weapons left, you turn to the Dark Rift engine. After fending off Sky Pirates and saving Mags, they power it up and launch a final assault on the
Sky Eater.
Chaos uses the darkness against you, but then you overpower him quite easily, only for you to realize he wasn't the true final boss.
You didn't really think this was over, did you?
The darkness is. After an intense vehicle boss battle in the Void, the darkness is defeated for real this time. Chaos loses his powers and is forced to help the Skylanders out at the Academy. So their writing is kinda fire? In many ways relating to the story, it's like a well-polished version of the Spyro's Adventure story. But what was gameplay like? Every Skylanders game starting with Giants featured a main gimmick, and for Superchargers, it was vehicles. Vehicles are aligned by element and terrain type, land, sky, and sea. And although only land vehicle sections were necessary, with Instant Hot Streak being available, sometimes they would just drag on so long and take up half of the level. This would also lead to on-foot sections sometimes feeling like loading screens in a way. Like, they weren't that bad, and obviously there are enemies, but level exploration was a whole lot more linear, especially compared to Vicarious Vision's other Skylanders game, Swap Force. Sometimes walking sections felt like they were just trying to come up with a simple way to connect one vehicle section to the next. But one thing they absolutely cooked with was the Superchargers roster. There were 8 returning Skylanders, but you really can't consider them variants, as the only thing they share are the designs. Other than that, all returning characters got completely new movesets. There were also 10 new Skylanders, well, really only 9 because Fiesta sucks.
Fiesta is bad.
And the first and only Nintendo collab, adding Hammer Slam Bowser and Turbocharged Donkey Kong. Unfortunately, Nintendo is Nintendo, and these Skylanders are only usable on Nintendo systems. Another feature that was introduced was the Supercharged combos, which when you paired a vehicle with its matching Supercharger, it would unlock mods for the vehicle and boost the health and damage stats of your Skylander, so pretty good. The racing mode also exists, and it isn't really anything crazy, but I did briefly hold the speedrun world record for the Clock Rock track, so you can check that out on speedrun.com. I bet you're all wondering, what was it like for me when Superchargers came out? If I had to be completely honest, I was more hyped for this game than any of the other Skylanders games. I grew up as a huge fan of cars, like here's an error inbox Finn McMissile from Cars 2 that says Holly Shiftwell on the box instead. Not even just the movie, like anything related to a vehicle I just thought was awesome. So you could imagine my reaction when I realized my two favorite things, cars and Skylanders, were coming together. It was when I watched this specific Skylander boy and girl skit that I thought Lou from Activision, yes, Zulu from Activision, would come show me the Superchargers himself. When the game finally came out, my mom took me to Toys R Us, and we were there as soon as they opened. From what I remember, Toys R Us didn't really try with a huge flashy display for Superchargers. It was sort of just shoved into the back with all the Disney Infinity stuff. But nonetheless, I walked out with a Wii U starter pack and definitely Dive Clops, as he was my guy back then. No joke, as soon as I got home and opened my Skylanders, I sat at the foot of my bed and finished like half of the game in one day. I think I was at monstrous aisles before I put the Wii remote down. Now that we've gone through just about everything Superchargers related, here are SGTV and Igknight the Fire with their thoughts about the game.
Hey guys, it's Skylander Gamer TV here, and if you know me, then you know I've been very vocal about my, let's just say, issues with Skylanders Superchargers. But despite everything I've ever said, I still care deeply about this game. I mean, one doesn't make a 3-hour video about something that they don't care about. Anyway, I'm doing something a bit different in my segment because during this segment, I will not say anything bad about Superchargers. You didn't hear me wrong, only positive things, so let's get right into it. Superchargers, in my opinion, has the best art direction in the entire series, and it's not even particularly close. There are so many beautiful levels in this game, whether it's the Cloud Breather's Crag, Vault of the Ancients, heck, they even made Land of the Undead look pretty somehow. Cloud Breather's Crag might be one of my favorite levels in the entire series, just because the way it looks. I'm being serious. Look at these opening shots, it's stunning. I also believe that Superchargers handled bringing back old characters the best out of any game. Instead of making a bunch of series variants of the same Skylanders with the same attacks besides one, they took old Skylanders and made them new. Gave them new designs and completely different movesets. They are so different I consider them different Skylanders. When it comes to series variants, I do think of them as the same Skylander. Gilgrunt, for example, look at his series 1 and 2. Come on, that's the same dude. But now look at Deep Dive Gilgrunt. I mean, that's a whole different Skylander. I don't even really mind the fact that Activision used half the roster on old Skylanders because these are not old Skylanders. After what they did, these are brand new Skylanders. Also, it goes without saying, the story in this game is better than any other Skylanders game. I've stated before, you know, my opinions on how much the story affects the game, but hey, it is not even close. They went all out with this story. It is amazing. At the end of the day, Skylanders Superchargers, it's still a Skylanders game. I love it. I love Skylanders Superchargers, despite everything I've said about it. So, thank you, Thumplander, for having me on the video, and happy 10th birthday to Superchargers, the big 1-0.
Yo guys, I've got a spark which I'm going to use to ignite the fire for a collaboration here on Thumplander's channel where we're talking about the 10-year anniversary of Skylanders Superchargers, my second favourite game in the entirety of Skylanders franchise. You heard that right, it's my second favourite, which is not really something that you hear of all too commonly in this community because Superchargers is often deemed the worst one, and a lot of that falls down to the vehicular units, as I like to call them. So you can take a vehicle that has no base, by the way, you can play with it like an actual toy, so that was clever in and of itself, but when you place it into the game, you get to unlock vehicle sections. Now, these land vehicle sections are required to beat the game, whereas the sky and the sea sections were all optional for 100% completion. And so a lot of people did not like how this shifted the gameplay from the traditional Skylander style. I, however, love it. Now, the sky and sea sections, I'm glad they are optional because those I was not so fond of, but the land vehicle sections were a really great way to spice up the gameplay a little bit and create some much needed variety within the Skylanders gameplay formula. So this was the first time where Skylanders was really trying something new, and yes, whilst it didn't work for the most part, a lot of the vehicle sections were annoying and tedious. At least it freshened up the gameplay. And even land vehicle sections, even though I say I enjoyed them, some of them could have been skippable. If the entire game could have been beaten with just for combat gameplay, for traditional gameplay, I think no one would have batted an eye at Skylanders Superchargers and the differences it made compared to previous iterations of the franchise. So yes, Superchargers, you either love it or hate it based on those differences in the fundamental gameplay elements. And it impacted the series because a lot of people weren't buying too many vehicles, and could you blame them? Because I mentioned the Funk Truck earlier. Well, you could also take this Tomb Buggy here, and you could buy them both and get no real difference in gameplay from the two of them. You get two different toys for sure, which is cool, but the gameplay differences they offer are very, very minimal. And they both unlock the same things in the game, okay? You can play through land vehicle sections with the Funk Truck, and you can play through land vehicle sections with the Tomb Buggy. Previous Skylanders games had it where you bought a new Skylander and you unlocked so many new aspects to the game. In Spyro's Adventure, you could buy one new Skylander, and if it was an element you didn't already possess, you have access to multiple different brand new elemental gates throughout the series. If you bought an adventure pack, you have a whole nother level. Those vehicles don't add much more besides a couple of different attacks, a little difference in the handling style of the vehicle. It just wasn't enough to justify the price when there was just such an excessive amount of vehicles. Where there really was gameplay variation was found in the traditional Skylanders gameplay for combat sections, where all of the Skylanders played extremely different. That was what the franchise was known for. So I think having more drivers and less vehicles would have been a better direction for the game to go, because Trap Team had the exact same problem. You could buy two life traps, and the only differences you got in the two of them was for sculpt. They both capture the same exact villains. They both unlock the same exact content within the game. They just look a little different. They're not like Skylanders themselves, where if you bought a new Trapmaster shortcut, you had access to a whole new character, and you could access undead elemental gates. That's a lot more value. So why go out of your way to buy all of the extra excess? It's just more shelf space for a lot of people, and it really hurt consumers' wallets. It hurt their pride a lot, and they stopped buying it. So Supercharged did scale down on the cast. It had fewer things to buy, but it didn't matter when it didn't create enough gameplay variants, in my opinion. You just needed one vehicle of each terrain, and you were sorted to get through 100% of the game. And speaking of one vehicle of each terrain, I want to close this off, not by complaining, by celebrating the game's launch. It's very nostalgic for me, and it's part of the reason why it's my second favourite Skylanders game, because I did gloss over that a little bit too much, and the reason it's my second favourite Skylanders game actually is because the game is gorgeous, okay? For level design, for graphics, for colours, they just work really well to make just a really fun, lively experience, an emphasis on fun, because some of the land vehicle sections can be very fast paced, and if you use the fast paced characters like Stormblade or Spitfire, you plow through combat sections and it's a blast. So all in all, the gameplay is actually like really crisp and finalized, especially compared to Trap Team that was really janky. Even the fundamental gameplay had its problems, not just for glitches there. So the game looks good, it plays well, and for music, for story, for atmosphere, as I was alluding to earlier, it's just so captivating. I really find myself immersed in the world of Skylanders through Superchargers, because they even cut off the Portal network, and the only way to transport your Skylanders to the world of Skylanders now is by creating a unique rift from our world to theirs via the engines that power the supercharged vehicles. Hence why you need a supercharged vehicle on your portal at all times, okay? The Portal network is down thanks to Chaos, giving this game a rather Empire Strikes Back type feeling. Like, you start the game in a very precarious situation, you have lost, and now we're a small resistance fighting back to stop Chaos and his evil Sky Eater. It's just such a great concept. It's a darker tone for a Skylanders game, and it's just something so refreshing and so different, and it's my second favourite Skylanders game as a result. But going back to the launch of this game, my first experience of Superchargers was actually on the Xbox 360, specifically the Dark Edition version of the game. Now, the Dark Edition for Xbox 360 came with a sea and a land vehicle, so on launch I also got my hands on a Sky Slicer, so I garnered access to 100% of the game. Technically didn't need to buy a single figure after that. I only bought it because I was a fan of the franchise and of the game itself, is why I bought more. So it really does hurt the game's profits when you don't encourage consumers to buy more stuff. And yes, that was a critical point of the franchise in years prior, especially in Trapting, when you had to buy just too much 100% of the game. So clearly, Skylanders never quite struck the balance between encouraging consumers to buy more and forcing them to buy excessively. There just was no balance. But with this game, I went to my local game store to pre-order for Dark Edition on Wii U, because that was my primary console at the time, and they had no more pre-order copies left. So I was not going to be getting my hands on the Dark Edition at launch, which was the version I wanted to play. I could only get the regular Wii U starter pack. So my mum chimes in and asks if the Dark Edition for the Xbox 360 version of the game was available. Luckily enough, it was, so we were able to pre-order that version instead. The only thing was, I didn't have an Xbox 360. I had no idea why my mum pre-ordered that version of the game for me. It turns out I was getting one for my birthday, but my birthday was 1 week after Superchargers launched. So whilst I got the Dark Edition starter pack for Superchargers on launch on September 25th, I had to wait a whole week to play it until I got the Xbox 360 console for my actual birthday. So this starter pack was kind of just sitting on the shelf and gathering dust for a whole week. But I think it's just so interesting how the launch of this game spoiled my Xbox 360 birthday surprise. And that is something that will forever stick with me, as well as just the game's overall impact. It's such a fun discussion point, which is why I've been blabbering on now for 9 entire minutes. I think it's time to move on to the next guy already, but thank you, Thumplander, as always, for having me.